Well, on Sarah's Country's Changemaker every Wednesday, I absolutely believe every week we uncover the biggest inspiration that is around our primary sector across Aotearoa, New Zealand. And to read the direction of our next guest, only 26, coming here with his wife Emma from the UK with little more than clothes on their back. They are embarking on a journey of seeking $5 million to capitalise on the dairy goat industry, utilising their incredible skills and what they've learnt from dairy cows, and were announced even the 2020 Northland Share Farmers of the Year. And Charlie Adair joins me now. Charlie, this is an absolutely incredible story, and high achievers is an understatement. Could you just start with your journey to end up on the New Zealand shores?
Yes, me and my wife about 6.5 years ago, thought we'd come and visit my sister over in New Zealand, and we thought it was quite a neat place, really. When we got over here, and within 6 months, we thought we'd sell everything we got at home and got out of the family dairy farm over there, and sure enough, we were back in New Zealand again. And wasn't too keen to start with. She said, I'll do it for 2 years, and then if I don't like it, we'll move back home again. And about 6 years later, we're still here. So she must be enjoying it and over here.
6 years later, and of course the acknowledgement of the 2020 Northland Share Farmer of the Year. But your next challenge is diversifying into dairy goats. And can you tell us what led to your interest in dairy goats as opposed to dairy cows?
Main reason we looked at goats was because you had such cool things about the cooperative, dairy goat cooperative, and thought I sort of looked into it a little bit more, and then seen this goat farm come up down the sale just down the end of the road. So thought we'll look into it a bit more, and done a few numbers in that, and thought it was quite a cool opportunity within this sort of area that we're in, and we're just trying to build a business that's resilient all round. So just dairy goats is another level really that makes our total business more resilient to the effects of drought and drought and everything else has to the industry up here.
Can you give us a bit of an understanding around sort of like the revenue streams and the levels that shareholders of the New Zealand Dairy Goat Co-op are achieving, some of the cost of productions that may differ from dairy cow production, etc.?
Yes, obviously the costs are a lot higher, a lot labour intensive, and goats are housed all year, so they don't go outside. So that sort of drives up your costs. But you sort of look at the averages throughout New Zealand for dairy goat production, and you're sort of sitting around that sort of $11 to $14, with sort of cooperatives payout this year being the lower one for a few years, sort of sitting over that $17 mark. So you're still, in terms of a bad year as such, you're still getting a good return.
Absolutely. And then what about the labour-intensive nature of milking goats?
Yes, obviously, sort of we're sort of planning on having sort of 8 full-time employees, and then three more over the peak time, because you got to remember goats aren't like cows. They sort of kid within like 3 days of their due. So you sort of, and they cycle with the hours of the sun daylight. So you sort of you can sort of peak with having sort of 200 does kid in a day, really. And bearing in mind they average over two kids a doe, so you sort of you're seeing up to 400 plus kids to be feeding on a daily basis.
Absolutely incredible. Now, let's talk about the investment opportunity. It's priced at $5.3 million with shares in the Dairy Goat Co-op. And what is your strategy for buying the dairy goat farm from Alan and Lynn Carls from Northland, and your journey into this type of raising of capital?
So it's sort of calling for minimum investment of $5 million, and that sort of gets you to around about a third of the company that we've set up. So we've got it under contract, sort of goat shares and land. And that's sort of what we're looking for at the moment, really.
And so are you looking for one particular a high net worth investor, or will you be able to structure more smaller share portions?
So we're sort of sticking to that minimum of $5 million at the moment, just because we sort of only want three to four investors, really. Just because I don't know, I'd like to get on with people quite well. So if we sort of look for three or four, we can sort of keep in contact a bit more regularly than we can if we sort of had 20. Really.
And what made you think, in terms of you're 26 years old, you're a high achiever in our primary sector, farming in your own right at the moment, and all the challenges and learnings. But for someone of your age to take on such a massive project and raise, considerable funds, do you think that that's the only way of progressing for young people to end up in farm ownership and equity from a large equity partner?
Not at all, really, because I've got a farm that we settled this year. That was on a lease to buy, so we sort of agreed the price 2 years ago, done a few cash flows and a few budgets, and sort of I knew, we had strict goals we had to achieve financially to make all this sort of happen this year. So we've sort of planned on the way through. We buy and sell quite a few animals, really. So sort of, it's the great thing about New Zealand. If you can buy an animal and, it increases out and then you sell it again, you sort of get jeopardy straight away. And then the investor thing was, this is quite a substantial business we're purchasing. I think it's just it's sort of like a marriage, isn't it, really? You sort of, if everyone's in love, then you all get on. So it's sort of, it suits me because I can use someone else's money to help me and my wife, but it also suits the investor as well, because you look at the returns that you're getting in the bank at the moment are quite minimal. So this is giving them good returns for a reasonably low investment, really. It's, you're buying land and shares that essentially that sort of suits everyone.
Yeah. And what is the long-term prospect of New Zealand goat milk in the markets as well?
I think it's very, very good. If there was a market going forward, we sort of wouldn't look at it. But when you look at market started sort of 25 years ago and how they've expanded now across the world, they sort of control volumes. They sort of try and match their supply with their land and be quite conservative on that, which is a real good thing for a cooperative company, because it just you haven't got too much worry about the oversupply. They're not chasing milk without the buyers in end, so it means they can hold their payout rather than have to cut the payout to sell product just to get it off the store, really. So I think the goats, New Zealand dairy goat industry has got a real strong future going forward.
Fantastic. And it sounds like so do you, with such a huge appetite for risk, or calculated and managed risk. And you've obviously proven yourself already in the industry and what you've been able to achieve. But it certainly hasn't come without its challenges as well. You've had some setbacks, and particularly with M. bovis.
Yeah, no, that was sort of when we first started buying and selling animals. We brought a line that, I purchased a line 2 days after the first ever case of bovis was found in New Zealand, and about 18 months later, it turned out these were trace animals, and they thought they might have bovis, so they culled them, and compensation wasn't quite as comprehensive as what it is, and quite slow to dish the money out, so it sort of starved our cash flow for a little bit, and we're sort of getting sick of farming at that point. But you sort of, when you're down in the hole, you get the spade and you dig on out, don't you, really? You don't sort of sit there and mope. Sort of got back on with it again, and, it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. So we sort of, went harder after we got going again and caught back up. But it's sort of, we've sort of got more criteria around purchasing. We're a bit more wise to the bovis. We know what it is and where we buy stock from. So touch wood, we haven't had any issues since.
Fantastic, and your attitude is what will continue to deliver your success. I'd just like to part ways with you, Charlie, on your advice for really hungry young people that want to progress in the sector, and your advice on how to, stick at it when the going gets tough.
Yeah, just always look, if you got. Everyone's got an end goal in life or where they want to get to, but it might just be the journey that you take to get there really is so different. That's not, everyone said to me when I come to New Zealand that, you need to get a 50-50 job anyway, you get the farm ownership, but you own a farm and we've never 50-50 before really. Sort of felt like we went the wrong way about it, but it's just, just look at every option, whether it's dairy or horticulture or, anything really. Just keep your options open because in goal it's just like I say, the journey to get there is completely not what you're expecting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on Sarah's Country's Changemaker. You're certainly making a lot of changes and in terms of opening up our eyes to the opportunity of the dairy goat industry. And of course, there are some inspirational words from a young farming couple that are progressing in their equity partnership journey at the same time. Absolutely incredible. And thank you so much to Hugh Stringleman from Farmers Weekly for uncovering that great story that you can find on farmersweekly.co.nz.
Oh, nice boots.
Yeah, thanks. They're new.
Ben, you all right?
Oh, yeah, sorry, mate. Just meerkatting pretty hard, eh? Yeah. I just said to myself, Ben, you work hard. You deserve new boots.